Welcome to Sound Advice, an hour dedicated to the world of business, including news, local updates, interesting interviews, and more. The opinions expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of the staff, management, or advertisers of this station.
Hi, I'm Susan Michaels.
And I'm Rick O'Brien, and this is Sound Advice.
Today we're talking with Dan Lombardi, who is with Blood and Biohazard Cleaners. Welcome, Dan.
Glad to be here.
So first of all, give us an idea of what you provide for customers. What is it you do?
So what we do at Blood and Biohazard Cleaners is we clean up the aftermath of situations, anything involving blood or biohazards. A lot of times people associate it with crime scenes.
Oh, okay.
Hoarding is another area of expertise that we do. We remove blood, bodily fluid, odor removal, any kind of animal feces, gross filth. We get a lot of calls on those.
Okay, so this would be like if somebody, we've heard of people that have had like 50 cats in their house or something like that, and you ever deal with anything like that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I haven't been to a hoarding house that hasn't had a cat.
So a hoarding house. So hoarding, there's a lot of other stuff involved that they're keeping, but they usually a lot of cats too?
It seems to be a trend.
Oh, wow. So how long have you been in this business, Dan?
I've been in the industry for a little over 4 years now.
How did you get involved in this? What kind of led you to it? Give us a little history.
I can't say that I grew up thinking that I was going to do this.
Right.
My whole life. I was actually an electrician before.
Really?
And during the winter time, I was.
Now, did you go to school to be an electrician and everything?
I was part of the union.
Okay.
Yep. And in the winter time, work was short. I was new to the industry. I hadn't learned that you're supposed to save up for those rainy months.
Now, does that happen typically with electricians, and that it's seasonal somewhat?
In the construction industry.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to be like that. Yeah.
All right.
So I started searching for jobs, and no kidding, I looked on Craigslist. I saw this job that said it was 2 lines, and it said, "Cleaning position, must have strong stomach."
Oh.
Must have strong stomach.
And I was like,
What thought went through your head when you read that?
my first thought was, what kind of cleaning job needs a strong stomach?
Yes.
And then I was like, I could do that.
Huh.
I didn't know what it entailed. I didn't say anything about crime scene cleaning. I didn't say anything like that. But I needed a job and I needed money.
What was the first job you went on?
The first job I went on was actually a roofer that had fallen off a 2-story building.
Oh, so this was an accident.
Correct.
And there was blood then that had to be cleaned up.
Yes.
Huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it a fatality?
Yes.
It was.
Yes.
So that
Unfortunately.
on something like that, is it it's an accident? Obviously, I would imagine you don't have as much restrictions as if it were a crime.
Either way, the police typically were there, and they have a NJ.
So it's taped off.
A number, yeah.
And you go in there and would do the cleaning after they do all their investigating.
Yeah, after they're completely finished, we go in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long have you had your own company? When did you go from working, because you worked for someone else to start with, right?
I did.
That company that you found,
Yes.
looking for someone with a strong stomach. So, and then you started your own company.
Yes, I worked for them for about a year. And then I started doing contract work. I found other companies. I was getting interested in the work.
Okay.
I found other companies that provided the services. I found a location. I moved actually out to Texas. It was a centralized location where I could take care of a lot of the mid.
Now, did you start in this location in the Seattle area?
No.
At the Craigslist? Where were you when you answered the Craigslist ad?
That was in California.
You were in California.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I did the contract work for a few other companies, and I did that for about 2.5 years.
And you said in Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I moved out there because the company I was working for needed a contractor out there. And then I told him that I was going to get contract work from other places as well. He was okay with that as long as I took care of his contracts. And then I stayed in the industry. I joined the military after that for a little while.
Okay.
When I got out of the military, I knew the entire time I was in the military that I was going to save up to start my own company.
Really? Okay.
Correct. So as soon as I got out, it's the first thing I did.
So you got your education before the military as far as what you were going to do and experience,
Yes.
and then thought after I get out, this is what I'm going to do as my job, as my business.
Absolutely. And then I studied all the standards that you need to follow. I researched that probably more than I needed to make sure that when I started, I was completely to par in that area.
Okay, and you started the business in this area in Seattle.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, what brought you to Seattle?
Well, I got married while I was in the military. My wife is from Ohio.
Your wife? Oh, well, again, what brought you to Seattle? Of course, she's from Ohio. You
She's
go
from
to
Ohio.
Seattle.
I'm from California,
Yeah, yeah.
and we decided not to go back to either one of our states, and we researched different areas. The economy here was better than others.
Okay.
There was enough. It's a big enough city. Seattle's up and coming and growing. That there was plenty of opportunity.
So the
for
potential
our business.
for your business Seattle seemed to be a good place because there was a lot of businesses and a lot of growth in that.
Yeah.
And there's very few companies that do that around here.
Okay.
That is very important. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So less competition makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the services that you do provide. You clean up crime scenes, and if there's blood, if there's other bodily fluids and that type of thing. You mentioned some of those. What are some other things that you do? The hoarding. You mentioned the hoarding as well. Let's talk about some of those services. When you get a call, say it's for a crime scene, when you go in, what is it that you do?
First thing we do is we assess the situation. We check with the police departments to make sure it's already been, that they've already done their part.
You don't want to go in there, start cleaning, and then go, oops.
That would be a really bad situation. I'm pretty sure my insurance wouldn't like that very much. We go in, we assess the situation. We go prepared to clean it. Because the last thing you want to do is leave a family member or victim with the scene left behind. Like just walk out and leave.
Yeah.
So we give them an on-site quote, and if they're okay with the quote, we start the work right then.
Does this, if it's like in a house, do you have to replace carpet and things like that sometimes?
Any non-solid item has to be removed.
Okay.
So, and our prices aren't the cheapest due to this type of work that we do.
Yeah.
So we create a situation where a safe environment for a contractor to go in there and finish the work if we have to remove anything.
Okay. So you
we
get
remove
things.
all the biological matter.
Sure.
And then the contractor can go in and do their job just to save the client a little bit of money.
Okay.
Stuff like that. And that's typically the case is the carpet. That's the biggest issue.
Right.
we have.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Or if you have the kind of ceilings that are sprayed on and that type of thing, I think that'd be something of a problem as well.
Yeah. And then, all of that's, then you have to take in consideration other situations like asbestos and lead and all those kind of hazards as well. We work with a company that does all the testing of environmental testing. So after we finish our job, they test the air to make sure that all biological matter has been removed, and they also test any solids like walls, countertops, things like that.
Is there still quite a lot of asbestos around?
There is. Quite
Is
a bit.
there?
Yes.
Okay, I know that there was this would have been, 20 years ago. We were talking about getting rid of all of that and stuff, and by now you'd think, okay, there's not much of that around.
You'd be surprised. And then a lot of the older buildings getting knocked down, that's where it becomes a problem.
Okay.
And then it's in the air and all of that at that point, too, isn't it?
So any buildings being demolished that have old materials in, you're going to have to come out and kind of make sure that doesn't become a problem when it comes down.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now you also do junk removal and gross filth cleanup. What kind of situations would those include?
Is any filth not gross?
All filth is gross.
Right.
You'd know.
Had a question about that.
Something that would fall into the gross filth category that wouldn't be a decomposition or a hoarding job. I picked up a refrigerator here in actually downtown Seattle. The person was a hoarder. They had the hoarding cleaned up, but they left the refrigerator. Well, all the food had decomposed. I couldn't even tell you what was in there. It was just a pile of mush, and it smelled worse than most decomp jobs. It was
really?
bad.
Oh, I can imagine. So that would be a gross filth.
Correct.
Okay. But you said that a lot of times the gross filth cleanup is kind of along with something else, either hoarding or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of times it goes hand in hand with hoarding. Somebody who doesn't take care of their house doesn't take care of a lot of things that could decompose. They get a lot of rats, feces build up in the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And then along with that is the decomposition factors. Somebody passes away.
Yeah.
Sits there for 3 weeks.
You would think that when it comes to hoarding, that is a compulsion that is going to be reoccurring. Do you find that, you're cleaning up some situation that is just going to come back and be the same thing all over again?
We initially never did hoarding. And so hoarding was a new situation to us, and that was the case. I found out. My crew had cleaned up a hoarding house. It was extremely clean, approved for the person to move back in.
Right.
The person had asked us about a specific item, and we had to dig through our trash to find it. It took us about 2 weeks to find it. And when we found it, we brought it back to their house, and the person had already started hoarding again. That is when I realized that it was more than just cleaning up after them. I didn't understand the whole process. So I started researching, and there's actually a program here in Seattle called the Hoarding Project that we now work with. And they provide psychologists and other people to help the person actually fix the problem. So that they're not continuously having to call people to clean up.
So you work in conjunction with them, and I would imagine you get references from each other. Is that the case?
That seems to be the case.
That they will have somebody someone's concerned about a relative or something, and say, hey, this person needs some help mentally as far as not being a hoarder, and then they would then probably contact you and say, hey, we need some help cleaning this up, and vice versa. Family relative or something would say, hey, we need this cleaned up, and you realize that, hey, if we clean it up, it's just gonna reoccur.
Yeah, and I'm finding out that it is more than so. Crime scenes have to be cleaned up right away.
Yeah,
you go to the job, you clean it up right away. The hoarding issue tends to be a much longer process.
Okay,
you have to wait for that person to be ready for it to be cleaned in order to be the situation to actually become better.
Okay.
There's I would imagine some attachment that they have to some of their stuff.
It all depends on what is causing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because there's different things that could cause hoarding. Sometimes it is a mental issue. Sometimes it is due to a traumatic event. There's different stages of hoarding. They say mechanics are the lowest stage of hoarding because they always think they need something, so they keep it around just in case.
Okay.
And that kind of issue doesn't need to be fixed because it's not really affecting their lives. But when it progresses, that's when it becomes a problem.
I always have some things that I say, if I get rid of this, I'm going to need it. And so you kind of hang on to some stuff. So you really probably don't need. And that's probably really mild hoarding. Is that what that
Absolutely. Well, they say most people actually have a mild case of it.
Okay.
Yeah. We are going to talk more about hoarding in our next segment.
Okay. In fact, let's take a short break right now. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about hoarding and some other things that we haven't got into at this point, and then give out some contact information. Okay, we'll take a short break and come right back.
All right, we're talking with Dan Lombardi with Blood and Biohazard Cleaners on Sound Advice.
Sound Advice returns in a moment on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.